Okay, our long wait program has arrived now. So we will be developing a freestyle UI5 application from today. So for this one, we will be using our very first OData service we created on our trip planner here. So this trip planner, it doesn't have any transactional behaviors built into it, but instead we have some of the functionalities, CRUD operations built into this OData service. So before going into this OData development, and we have some guided libraries from SAP, whereas to ease our development approach and where to seek help and etc. So we will just have a look on them, and also the Fiori guidelines. So in this case, whenever we work on UI5, so we have seen the architecture of UI5, MVC architecture, and how the UI5 front-end servers and HANA database, everything, how they are arranged in a landscape and etc. So the UI5 UI is going to be the client on the top layer, and next underneath it, it will be the gateway server, which will be communicating with the backend, and backend will have underlying database. So these are the simple layers that we will be having. So being a OData developer or CDS developer, that is very much easy, and no that not that complex job in my perspective, if I want to say. But if we accept doing something for user interface development, then it will be a bit difficult. When I say difficult, the user experience point of view, complying with the guidelines and matching the business requirement according to the expectations of the UI controls and their each and every behavior of the controls and etc., look and feel and etc. So that is where it might be a simple thing that the business or end users might ask. So for that, to achieve that, we might be ending up changing the whole approach of the UI development itself. Okay, if they feel that that is a business critical. So in that case, we have some guidelines to support in our point of view, and also the SAP recommended ways of developing the user interfaces. So keeping or provided that information, we can strongly convince the customer or the user, saying, look, this is what the product provider is recommending. So if we want to take a deviation on this one, we might be ending up with more effort and etc. We can convey the same message, and also we may see the unexpected behavior if we go in this route or something like that. So to do that, we have two things here. One is experience.sap.com. So this one, we have already seen what this experience.sap.com in terms of the exploring our guidelines. So guidelines for Fiori, SAP Fiori again. So in this Fiori, we will be going to explore the UI elements here. So in here we have all the different categories of elements here, and the different categories as well. So we have seen the floor plans when we were working on Fiori elements. So we have seen the details of the floor plans. So which floor plan we should be picking up in which situation, list report, analytical overview, and etc. But right now we are not going to look at this floor plans, but instead we are going to look at these UI elements here. So in this UI elements, if you see, there are a lot of UI elements available for us to use, but it may be difficult to go and look at each and every UI element that available in this particular libraries. So instead going in this way, it might be worth finalizing our the layout structure, at least the major requirement structures. So how our page should look like. So a page map also would help us how the UI, what is the user expectation in terms of the number of pages. For example, if I want to mention as an initial thing, how many pages user is wanting particular requirement. And what, okay, so if user wants it, the app to have 2 pages, then okay, let's write down 2 pages and come to the first page. What are the expectations on first page? What is needed on first page? Okay, so there is one table. If we take our this CBO application, for example, let me go ahead and execute this one. So in this case, we have a list page on the beginning, on the starting page, and there we have a filter section, and underneath it we have a table section displaying our information here. So if you see, as this is a template, we have picked up the template and we have developed. But if user is expecting the same, so okay, if I select this record, I want to see the detailed information here when I go to edit, and it needs to be displayed like this or something. So we will also be doing similar to this one. So how, if at all, we want to develop same layout, for example. So let's say if we're not introducing anything new, but if we want to develop this in our freestyle approach, how we would be doing it. And user also asking, okay, so in this page, I want some filters to be displayed on top, and underneath it, I want a table. And whenever user chooses particular record on this one, I want to see the detail page, this navigation. So in this case, what are the major UI elements that we see? A table. So a table. So there are different kinds of table. That's fine. So we can look at that. How many kinds of tables are there, and etc. We can explore that. But a major control we say is table. Okay, table, fine. Let's put it on the first page, and also a filter. So a filter on top. So the terminology, how we call, what we call, then that comes secondary. But now we have a filter and a table, and on filter we have some action here. So whenever user clicks on action, then the table has to load all the information. And whenever user selects any of this row on the table, then it's navigating to next page, the page 2. In this page 2, we have a form-based display here. So this one, we can say it as a form-based display. Okay, so what page it is and etc. So let's park it. But this is a form-based display. And also we have a create button here. Whenever user clicks create, an editable form has opened. and whenever user clicks on save on the next page, page 2, then the data is going to be saved on the database. So this is where the uh, post OData call is going to happen. So for this one, how we see in the second page is it's a form, one is display, and another one is editable form. Okay, form and an action on second page. Now we have listed down the major UI controls that we wanted to have on page 1 and page 2. Now we just go here to the experience.sap.com, and if you see here, some of the UI element types have been categorized here. So here the major topics or the controls have been listed down. So the terminology, whatever we spoke, action or navigation, if you see, there is a terminology, and also form, layout, container. So all three, so either they have the similar functionality built into them. So, and also if you look forward to it, and there is a table, list, tree, if you see, it is straight away available on this one. And also there is a same terminology available here, filter. So if you go ahead and pick up any of this, let's say I'm going to filter. Now we see how many types of filters are available in this filter category here. So filter bar, icon tab bar. Okay, so these are all having individual behaviors. Okay, so for us, what we are looking for is filter bar. So let's choose this filter bar, and in the filter bar we can straight away go ahead and see how this filter bar looks like. Okay, and what are all the feasibilities that this filter bar is having. And if you straight away say that, so to remember us, so it is called a smart filter bar. So, and this smart filter bar is related to the filter bar. So a slight difference, the filter bar is freestyle, whereas smart filter bar has additional features when it communicates with the OData service. And in this example, the template, what kind of filter bar we have here is, it's a smart filter bar. So if we use smart filter bar, we will not be needing to write more lines of code. But if we use the filter bar, then we need to handle all these go and etc. So they are the additional things will be avoided if we use the smart controls. So these are all called smart controls. Similarly, whatever the table we see here, it is a smart table. So this table is smart table, and this is a smart filter bar. So always they will be used together. Wherever there is a smart filter bar, and there will be a smart table, and it is just the table itself will have a separate parameter to pass what is the ID of this one. We will come to that later. But from this control point of view, how it will have the responsiveness according to the device and desktops, large screens, big screens, and etc. And there will be do's and don'ts as well. So when this has to be used and when it shouldn't be used, and etc. Okay, so this one, exploring on this particular control, how we should look at it, we have already gone through this experience.sap.com. And when we come to the end, this is what we might be interested as a developer. We are developing the new application for this. So here, this is what is going to be our next topic. So here we have the implementation guide. Where can we find examples for this one? So okay, you are explaining me how the layout should look like. Only I see the pictures, that's fine, but is there a live example where I can feel it? So how it interacts and how it works and etc. So yes, that is what we have under this implementation section. So here, if you see, this is all coming from the SAP UI5 demo kit. So the demo kit will have a lot of information. We will be getting into that. So filter bar, if you see in the bracket, SAP UI5 samples, where into which section this is taking you. So it's going to take you to the filter bar samples. So let me click on this one. And if you see, I am in UI5 demo kit right now. So I came into the samples. So here we have documentation, API reference, on and off. On and off, we are coming onto this website, but we have never gone into in detail on this website. What are all the supporting things that this website is having for us? So in this case, it has directly taken us to the filter bar. It's not the smart filter bar. If you see, it is just the filter bar. And in the samples, we have one sample available. It displays in the bracket that how many samples available. We have one sample available here. But again, don't forget to watch out your backend system version. So this may lead sometimes, if you forget to look out this version, the feasibility, the functionality may work on the latest versions, but if you implement it, it may not work properly on your backend system once you deploy your application. So in this case, you just go to change version and pick up the version that your system supports, the backend system version. So in our case, it's quite different. So we have supporting version of Web IDE for 1.52, but our backend system will support up to 1.71. Okay, so if there are functionalities available on 1.71, if it shows error on your Web IDE, you can ignore that and you can deploy, but you will not be able to test on your Web IDE as that will stop you syntactical point of view. Okay, so each time whenever you make changes, you will need to deploy it onto your system. Then there you need to test your application. So if you want to avoid that one, then just pick up 1.52 version, whatever is available. So in this 1.52, you can check what is available, up to which extent the functionality is available. So if you remember this ui5.sap.com, that is also fine, which is a demo kit. If you come to samples, here we will have all the list of controls with samples, with examples. Okay, and if you don't want to pick up any one section from here, you can straight away search. It is possible. But here again, we have some categories also listed down in these samples. So if you see here, we have maps, smart controls, tiles, messages, bars, trees, pop-ups, tables, lists, inputs, etc. So we have a lot of things available here. So if you go into the smart controls, it will directly directly take you to the smart control, directly applies the filter on smart controls. So if you see here, smart area, smart chart, smart filter bar, smart form, smart link, all they all have the number of samples that SAP has prepared for us. So if you look at, in our case, let's pick up this smart filter bar, and in the smart filter bar we have 3 samples available. And here we see the smart filter bar, the first one, second one, OPA test. So we'll come a little later, or we may not be looking at this OPA test, one page acceptance. It is called the unit testing. We'll not be working on that one, but fine. So smart filter bar in dynamic page. So there are types of pages as well. So each kind of page will have different functionality, additional features available. So we will see that one as well. So if I pick first one here, smart filter bar. Okay, so let it load. It is taking some time. So perfect. So if you see, this is what the smart filter bar here on top. The same whatever we see on our list page template here, the same smart filter bar is getting displayed here. So here there are some values and etc. So they are going to be our further steps, further analysis. Okay, so some of them are coming from OData service, or some of them are just built locally. Okay, so we need not to worry about those things. But if we want to build a smart filter bar like this, there is a sample, that's fine. So how do I proceed? How do I work on this one? So it is interactive. You can straight away go ahead and check all the options available here. There will be some response, at least for us to explore on this particular sample that SAP has provided. Okay, and there is a export button as well. So if you want to export and etc., so we can export. And this one. Come on. Okay, let me go back again. Yeah, it didn't show me properly. Yes, this is perfect. So now if I see all these operations and the drop down, whatever I choose, automatically it's going grayed out. And if I click on OK, go, it's going to filter the results for me. Okay. So now let me look at this toolbar available here. If you see the right side, there are some buttons available. They are not part of smart filter bar control here. So this toolbar will be available for each and every sample that SAP has provided us. So if you click on any of the sample that we see here, this toolbar is fixed, and that is the toolbar which we will be helping us. So if you look at this one, and there is a adapt UI button. If we want to adapt something on this one, we can adapt, but that's fine. I don't want to do that right now. exit. So on the next to this adapt, there is a small coding icon for us. So this is what our source. So if you click on that one, it's going to load all the code that has been implemented to achieve this page, whatever we see here. So that is for entire page, including the table. But in this case, we may or may not interested to look at this table, but we definitely need to implement a smart filter bar. So in that case, we will be just looking at this structure, how this is being okay. So there is a button, and after that there is a smart filter bar, and up to here it is all about the smart filter bar. So we can straight away copy this one into our application, and we can analyze further, but that analysis we will see that. Okay, so in this point of view, we will be having multiple files on this sample. How a JavaScript will be integrated to this one, and what is happening when some event happened on this smart filter bar. They all will be in the JavaScript files. But this layout stuff, whatever we see here, all the layouts will be with the .xml files, view.xml, or sometimes fragment.xml files. All the extensions would be .xml. So whenever you are looking for some UI related help or logic code that has been used in this particular sample, then it is .xml. And if you're looking for any JavaScript, how this is being handled in the JavaScript, then you will be looking at .js extension files. And if there is any data, then some of the samples will have this .json file, and some of the files will not have the JSON file. That's absolutely ignorable. But if you also have a requirement to have some demo data as part of your business presentation and etc., you also can have this this kind of JSON file prepared and placed in your local project, and you can demonstrate to the business this is how it is going to be with the dummy data. Okay, so now that is what is called the mock server as well. So whatever the data we have, we place this data and we run the application on that mock data. We create that mock server internally in the application. So that mock server, in the sense, we don't need to get confused. So it's for mocking the data with some duplicated data or some expected or runtime data. So whereas we have prepared a JSON format and placed in our project and demonstrating it. So like this, we can look at look at the other controls. For example, as I said, we want a table, so which is SmartTable. So this one is a SmartTable, and that is what we are looking at. In the SmartTable, we have 8 samples available, and each one, if we want to represent in different perspective to the user, and also please remember that SAP has not given all the examples, all the scenarios that covered on particular UI control, but they are just samples to demonstrate us using the maximum number of features. But still there are additional features that are not listed in these samples. So those how we achieve them and etc., we will see them later. So this is the smart table, the first smart table example. And if you see here, a smart table with responsive table. So here we are going to describe the types of the tables that smart table has. So inside the smart table, there will be three types of tables: analytical table, grid table, responsive table, and tree table. Yeah, four types of tables. By default, it's going to be the responsive table. So let me go ahead into one of the example, smart table. So let it load. Come on. So in this one, if you see, the same smart filter bar and table example has been loaded for us. So as I said, if there is a smart filter bar, there will be a smart table automatically. If we want to use, it is not mandatory. Again, don't take this as a stand. It is not mandatory. There can be smart table without smart filter bar as well. Okay, so if we decide to implement them separately, that's absolutely fine. We can use them independently as well. But for the usage point of view, that our clarity or understanding will drive when exactly we need to use together, and when, if there is a need, when we need to use independently. That's secondary. And again, if we go into the code logic of this one, and here underneath this smart filter bar, there is a smart table here. So this is the smart table block. So in this smart table, if you see here, there is an entity set assigned to this one. And also in the smart filter bar, we will be having the entity set assigned to this one. So both smart table and smart filter bar are having the both the same entity set name assigned to sorry, this is entity type, but internally the entity set is line item set, but the type is line items. Both are same. But if you see here, the next property on the smart table here, there is a smart filter ID. Okay, so this ID is referring to the smart filter bar here. So the ID, whatever the ID has been given here, this is the smart filter bar. The same ID has been used or attached, referenced in this one. So depending on that one, there are some additional properties where they will be behaving depending on this linkage between smart filter bar and a smart table. So if you don't reference this one, then you are separating smart filter bar and smart table. So if you don't specify smart filter ID, then both are independent. If you specify smart filter ID, then both are together. So the next property, if you see here, the table type. The table type right now, it is table, which is a grid table, and that's fine. So this is how we just read through the samples available on this demo kit, UI5 demo kit. And similarly, we have all these controls. If whenever you come to look for some of the controls, and you can straight away come here and explore these things, and you can go into the code, whatever is suitable or feel is relevant for you. You can copy that section and you can go back to your application, and we can use that one. And for example, there are let me go here. into the samples and, for example, input. So if you see the input, if you click on input, all the inputs have been filtered here. So in the input list item, there is one sample. If you click on this one, this is the list item having the different input controls here: switch, checkbox, radio button, input, again input, drop down, and this is the slide bar. Okay, and all these ones can be, if you see this one, okay, there are these many controls on this one. Let's go ahead and see what are those names and etc. So as I know those names I specified, but if you see the labels against these labels, for example, country, in the country, let's see what is there, country, and this is what it is. So if you want to know about it, and if you can remember this country, or you can even copy that one and you can look for the .xml file and you can search for it. And input list item, what is this? This control name is called select. Select is the control name here. Okay, so this is how we just go ahead. Otherwise, if you want to remember something, look specifically for something, then that's not how we look at it. And moreover, on this one, we have some namespaces. So the namespace is very much important, on which namespace which control is available, and including those namespaces is also a must thing to know. So on the top of this view here, in the view, XML NS is the keyword to reference any of the namespace. So the SAP.m is the major namespace that majority of the controls are in. So table, responsive table, toolbar, whatever the input field, drop down, radio button, checkbox, slide bar, all the things, whatever we have seen now. So they all are part of SAP.m namespace. So this XML NS refers to XML namespace. NS refers to namespace, and the differentiation between, if you see here also we have the MVC, core, and L, and etc. So they are after XMLNS a little colon and then the word. So that refers to the alias name of this one. So whenever we have a alias name, then these alias names will be used to specify the controls inside that namespace. So why do we need these? Why can't we specify XMLNS by default? So without core and etc. So that's not how SAP designed. At a time, only one namespace can be made default. In this case, SAP.m made as a default. If you write some control name XML in the XML format, whatever the default namespace it is specified, it goes and looks for that particular control in that namespace. If it doesn't find any control in that one, then it's going to report an error saying the control not found. And if you see here core, there are more items. So there is no control called item in the namespace SAP.m. So that is why it is being taken from core namespace. So these namespaces, again, we have we have clear idea on other documentation, so we will see how we tackle this one. But what we needed to carry from this one is, okay, so all the controls are not in one namespace. That is what we should be considering or storing in our mind. Okay, the controls also segregated into different XML namespaces. Whatever the control we are using, we need to ensure that that particular namespace is included within the view itself. So all these namespaces, SAP or this sample is using these namespaces. That is why these namespaces are here. If you look at this smart, let me so smart filter bar, for example, whenever you click on this one, immediately on the top bar, top itself, it will show you what is its namespace. So this is what the namespace here. Okay, and also here we have some other information to show from which UI5 version this control is available in the libraries, in the namespace. It is 1.22. So right now we are on 1.52, so no issue for us. We can straight away go ahead and use it. Anyway, we have applied the top the version filter on the top level itself. So we can straight away go ahead and use it, no worries. And the next one here, API reference. This is what we are going to look now. So now let's say I'm going to input. So input, in the input, I have 14 samples available here. In the input, if you see here, input assisted two values, tabular suggestions, input checked, input description, password, and etc. So if you have something, some specific requirement on this input field, if whether you want to validate it or whether you want to represent your input with different colors or something like that, then you can straight away come here and look for samples if they are available. This is the first thing we will be doing whenever we try to implement a control onto our freestyle UI5 application. So for example, if you see here the input states, so there's the states is quite interesting. Whenever we type something, this is, if you see, this is I think read only, made read only. Yes, so if you see here, product not editable, so the field is not editable, but this field itself not enabled. So if you make it not enabled, and you won't be able to select, you won't be able to place the cursor also on that particular one. And if it is not editable, read only, at least you can select the text from this particular field, but it is read only, you can't make any changes. Product editable, we can edit our product. Okay, product with value help, if you see here, input itself having these features, the value help. If you click on this, so these are all feasible using the input control. If you come across this kind of requirement, okay, so input field with value help, this is the requirement, this is how it is going to be. So now you have a sample here, product with value help. You just look at this one. Now go into your coding, look for product with value help where that input has been implemented. If you see here, product with value help, this is the input, and you can look at this input, how this is being, what are the properties has been implemented on this particular one. And similarly, you can just go ahead and implement on your project. So now again this is help only mode. So you won't be able to edit anything here. As soon as you click on this input field, you will be taken with the help. Okay, so whereas some situations, to avoid the validations and etc., we might be requiring this feature, whereas we always recommend user to select from the list of values. And there is another alternate way as well for this one, a drop down list. So we can provide a drop down list and you ask user to choose from the list. But in the drop down, we will not be having a search capability. But in this one, we will be having such capability here. We can filter out the results and we can suggest user to select from the hit list. Okay, so this is how we look at the samples basically. So we will be again and again coming here and using this samples for our application implementation. So let me go to my web IDE right now, and there is some more help or documentation available for us in this demo demo kit itself, but let us use that later. So now I'm just going to create my application new from template, and in this case I'm not going to use any of the predefined template like a list report or analytical report. I'm going to choose my SAP UI5 application, which is a freestyle application. So whenever you choose this one, I think there is a Fiori design guidelines as well. So if you click on this one, again, it's going to take you to the experience.sap.com. How this design guidelines will work, that's fine. So we have got enough idea and we can explore on the experience.sap.com. So I'm going to give my project name ZTH trip app freestyle. So namespace, that's fine. This is basically in real time, it's going to be the package name. If they have any specific namespace, we'll be giving that namespace. But for now, we are not going to give any namespace. So if you see here, it is asking us to include at least one view here, because as we are going to freestyle UI5 application, whenever we choose the template, SAP delivered template, it would ask us to choose the OData service, because from there it will be asking us to choose the entity set, the primary entity set for list report and the navigation for object page. But in this case, we are going to create a view one. So in this view one, I would say the home, I would say. So you can even name it if you want to segregate it is a view and etc. You can proceed with V, then home and etc. But for now, I'm just giving it as home view. That's okay. Next. And if you see here, we have JSON, JavaScript, HTML, all these options available. If someone familiar with any kind of views, JavaScript or something, they can go ahead and use it. So I never tried any other views than XML, because I feel XML is the more comfortable and easiest formatted way of doing it. But even SAP recommends using the XML views. That's why the XML is the default option here as well. So next and finish. So now I have finished adding my project here. So if you see the structure, now we see our view folder under our web app here, and also a controller home.controller.js to support our MVC architecture. For there will be a controller created for each view that we create inside our project. So that is part of MVC architecture, and we have component.js also created and manifest.json also created. This is the descriptor file. All the configurations we will be doing in this manifest.json file. So now fine. So let me go ahead and test this one. So I don't have anything implemented on this one. So it's just the title on my page. So if you go and look at your home page here, so it's just the title have on this particular view. So in this case, if you see the top section of this one, it includes the controller name. What is its controller? So as I said, it's a one-to-one attachment to the controller and view. It's directly whenever this instantiates, whenever this view gets triggered, there will be the hook functions, hook methods like init, after rendering, before rendering, on exit, etc. Those all methods will be tightly running whenever this view acts accordingly. And this is to support the HTML1, HTML namespace of the W3 org, W3 standards. We don't need to worry about that. So that will be automatically added. And if you see the MVC architecture, MVC namespace also have been added from sap.ui.core. And the display block, this is also the default one. Whenever a see the page, it includes entire thing that we specify in this view as a block. And the next one is the interesting one, XML NS dot equal to sap.m. So this is the default namespace. It has been added. And going forward, if we want to implement a smart filter bar, then we will keep extending or adding the relevant or required namespaces in this section here. And these are all the keywords that has in the sap.m namespace itself. And within the app, these are the we call them as aggregations. And in the aggregations, we will have the number of pages. If we like, we can have the multiple pages as well. But as we see the page here, the page has only the title here. The title is coming from this page title, and this is referring to I-18N internationalization. And if you go here, this is the title is being displayed on your page here. So if you want to rename this one, so that's fine. So we have renamed our page title. It's straight away reflecting on the app for us. So now if we want to replicate the smart filter bar, whatever we have seen, let's go ahead to this guide and let us pick up the smart filter bar. And in the smart filter bar, let me go to the first one, and go here and smart filter bar. I just copy all this smart filter bar section, but in fact we do not need any of these input controls that have been added manually here. They are the custom controls. We will know what is the difference, but I'm going to paste or use my smart filter bar here. So in this case, if you see, there are more errors. It says syntax error, unexpected namespace error, smart filter bar. See, so that means we don't have the necessary namespace included in our view. So let's go back again and see what is the namespace. How do we find out the namespace? If you see, there is a smart filter bar, then colon, then control aggregation, for example. And same thing for smart filter bar as well. So the smart filter bar colon smart filter bar. So unfortunately, so they are using the same name for smart filter bar here. So if you look at this one in the XML namespace here it is. So XMLNS smart filter bar. So let us pick that one and go into our application and let's paste it here. Okay, so now we have our smart filter bar namespace here and majority of the errors gone. Now still I have some errors. Let's see, unexpected namespace core. So where is core here? Yes, it's here. Core namespace is not there, but we are not going to use this this field at the moment. So let me remove this section up to here. I don't want to use this one, those three controls. So I just removed it. And I have some warnings. What are those warnings? The property entity type is deprecated. Use entity set property. So if you see, so entity type is deprecated. Use entity set. That's what it is saying. That's fine. I'll use entity set. No issues. And also we have another warning here. Replaced by event before variant fetch. What is the event? Before variant save. Okay, before variant save. Yeah, I think that's fine. We are not going to use any of these properties. I'll remove them. Okay, so now we have the filter bar included on our page. Let me beautify it. Perfect. So now let me go into my application and refresh it. Perfect. So I started developing it. I see something coming up onto my page, which is good news. But now we have not included any of the OData service till now. So if we want to work with any of the controls with real data, definitely we need to integrate or connect to backend system with a OData service, right? So let's go ahead and create OData service into our project right now. So whereas if you see here, there is an entity set property which is a smart filter bar is expecting, but right now we know the background of OData service and the terminology, entity types and entity sets. So these line items is nowhere an entity set. knowingly in our project. So that is where we are coming up to thinking to connect this project to a OData service so that we can specify the right entity set on this smart filter bar. So if you go and look at our project here, so this is the service, OData service that we have built on our backend system. Let's take this service and how and where we create or include our OData service. So let's go into the manifest.json file here, and it may be difficult to search in this particular code editor. Let's switch to the descriptor editor here. If you switch to descriptor editor, everything will be the graphical way of doing it. And here we have models here and data sources. So these two are relevant for us to connecting our OData services to the backend. Data source is the first thing which we need to use our OData service to create in our add into our UI5 project. Once we have the data source, then we create a model on top of the data source. So let me go ahead and create the data source. So what this data source will have, this data source will have or will initiate the metadata, pulls the metadata from backend and stores in locally into our project. Okay, so whereas that metadata will help us to navigate through the pages and etc., where we can build the controls and local annotations and etc. So that is where that the data source or metadata will help locally in the project. So here plus and minus, let me click on plus and add my, so this screen we are familiar so far. So where we see our backend system and we can give our credentials. And we can search for our OData service, and we can select our OData service, go ahead, and that's fine. So now our data source, the OData service has been added as a data source. And in the right side, if you see here, URI is going to be this one, SAP OPU OData, SAP and our OData service, and locally where it is stored, the metadata where it is stored, local service / metadata. And if you see here, local service metadata. And now you can understand going to the template based application that we have generated. So that doesn't have view, that's fine. But this local service, how this has been added, now we can understand from this. Okay, so this is an automated step where it goes and adds our OData service as a data source in the project, and from there this data source will be fetched, the metadata will be fetched and stored locally in this particular local service folder. So okay, that's fine. So now we have our metadata locally in our project. Now this is not the this is not enough for us to tell our smart filter bar to go ahead and pick the entity set, but instead we need to create a model for this one. So we will see or we will understand why this model is required. So I think I have already given some example in the past, I guess. So whenever we develop a HTML5 HTML application, HTML page, or let's take our ABAP program as an example. whenever we create ABAP example, ABAP program, we will be creating parameters or select options, things like that. We will be giving some names against to them. So inside our program, we will be using those parameters or selection screen parameters, whatever we have given. We are not doing anything to fill the value into those parameters. That's the framework. Whenever user enters some value, the parameter name, whatever we have given, the value will be filled up into that one, and it will give us in the program. So we just refer that variable name or parameter name so that we get the value that user has given. In the same way, in the way of parameters, we will be using the terminology called model in our UI5 application development. So how this will be capturing how the values captured from the user interface. User is entering some value, we are getting that value into the program or into our JavaScript. How we are getting is in the form of the models. Okay, so there is another way of getting it as well, but that's not the recommended way. But this is how we get the values that user has given. So whenever we have a model, and so that we will be binding this to the UI control, so that we get the values that user has given as an input. Through the model we get them. Okay, so in these models we have types of models: OData model, JSON model, and XML model. We are not going to work on XML model, but we will be working on JSON model and OData model. In these two types of models, now we are creating OData model. Whereas this OData model service will be connected from outside or wherever it is, and JSON models will be the client-side models. We will not need any real-time connection to create JSON models. JSON models are local models or client-side models, but whereas OData models are server-side models. So they will establish the connections and they will pull the data from the servers, whatever the server it can be. So to do that, we have created the data source, whereas it has connected to the backend system and it has pulled the respective metadata and stored inside the project. Now we are going to create a model. So again, here it's the same procedure. And in this case, so here we have an option to give some specific name to this model. Otherwise, that's fine. There will be only one default model across the project. If we want to make it a default model, there will not be any name for it. So I'm going to set this as a default model. In the drop down, if you see here, we have the data source available here. So in your practice, if you skip your data source step, and this drop down will not be having any value. Okay, so that's it here. So let me go ahead and create it. So now if you see, default model has been created. What kind of it is? It is OData V2 version OData model here. And this is the data source. This is the URI and preload. There are some other properties available here. And this binding mode is going to be important sometimes. So we will come to that later, not all at once. So now we have created the model. That is fine now. So we are set with our model. Now we can go to our view, and here if you see, there is a validation. This line items is not an entity set. So does not exist the control. What is this one? Consider selection variants. Sorry. Okay. So this is again coming from the metadata. Earlier we have not seen that error, but now we see that error message. But here line items is not an entity set now. Let me save this one, go ahead and execute my application. So in the past, it didn't ask me to connect to the backend system, because that time we did not have OData service. But this time we have OData service added onto our project. Even for execution, it needs authentication. If you see, so let me execute this one. So now we don't see any output here. That's fine. If you go into console, you will see something, some interesting thing. Okay, so we have not enabled the default binding option. That's fine. So I'll show you that later. So now let us go ahead and give the right entity set name on our filter bar. Smart filter bar, what is that? It is going to be travel header. Let me use the travel header entity set here. So okay, so I have given my travel header as an entity set in this case. So let me go ahead and refresh. So okay, so there is no integration to this particular smart filter bar in any manner how it needs to be represented. That's why it's not displaying us. That's fine. So let us go ahead and implement the smart table as well. So again, it's the same procedure. Go to the guide, and here we have the smart table available, and copy this smart table, come here and paste the smart table. Again, for the smart table, namespace is missing, unexpected namespace. Again, go here and look for the smart table namespace. So copy the namespace from here and come back. So use the namespace. Perfect. All the errors are gone. And let me beautify it. And if you see here, entity set is, this is not my entity set. I'm going to use my travel header entity set, and here smart filter bar ID. This is this is what the important thing. So here, yes, the ID is same here, and the same ID is being used. So table type is going to be table. I think everything is fine now. Okay, so let me go back to the application and refresh it. So if you see now, no filter set, no filters set, because there are no annotations we have used on this particular one, and it doesn't automatically bind any of the data for us. So if you go into this personalization button here, so how this button is enabled, we have an option here, use table personalization. this option is providing us to enable that particular button. So if you use this one and select all the columns, so now it's going to add all the columns onto our table. And if you click on go here, come on, yes. So if you see, once you click on go, it's going to bring all the data that we have on our backend tables here. So now this is not looking that great in terms of the sequencing of the columns and etc. So if we have any CDSU built to tell the sequence of this particular columns on this SmartTable, that how we did in our previous example using a template was creating a metadata extension, and we have specified all the UI annotations on top, and we have defined the sequence of the fields and the currencies and filters, selection fields, and etc. All of them have been defined using the CDSUs. But in this case, we are not using any CDSU. It's a plain OData service which doesn't have any metadata built on top of the service. So by this way, if we want to make use of the CDS, again, we can go to the CDSU and we can create the CDSU, add the metadata extensions, and we can include that in OData project, and we can bring that onto this one, and we can simply use that one. But we don't want to do that because we are trying to achieve something a freestyle. So in this case, we have an option of using or implementing the local annotations in this case. So if we use, as we are working on the smart controls, please remember that the annotations, whatever we use, they are going to work on the smart controls and also the dynamic pages. Not on all the controls. They're not going to apply on all the controls. So whatever we see as a smart control, only the smart controls are going to use the side effect of the local annotations. So now if we refresh this one, refresh the application, again the layout has gone. So again, you need to go and choose the number of columns and then click on go. But we don't want to do that. Instead, I'm going to create a local annotation file here in the web app. So I'm going to create a folder first, annotations folder, and inside this annotations, I'm going to create a new annotation file. If you see, so create annotation file, and it displays all the number of OData services that we have included into our project. I'm selecting this OData service, and if you click on go, next, finish. So the annotation file has been added onto our project right now. If you open this one, it includes all the necessary things that it has to. Again, here I'm going to use my annotation modeler. Okay, so whenever we used the custom business object, we have seen the annotations. I think they created the local annotations and impacted some other stuff that we did not want it, but we have removed the local annotations so that our application started working based on our backend annotations. But in this case, we are specifically wanting to create our local annotations. Even in this case, where whenever we see in our documentation, for example, we have seen a couple of times that there are annotations, specified XML annotations, ABAP CDS annotations, and CAP CDS annotations. These three categories are maintained to achieve in each of the functionality. So as whenever we see that XML annotation, then that is what is going to be our local annotation. So even in Business Application Studio, in our previous example, we have seen that the annotation modeler, we've opened annotation modeler and we added a few additional columns onto the table so that we were able to see those columns on the table straight away. But in this case, if you are not pretty sure about how to create local annotations, and you can go ahead and look for the local annotations. And here the local annotations, they are pretty much straightforward, that here we know that if we wanted to display any column on the table level, it's going to be UI annotation. And also in the table, it's going to be UI.line item. So as we learned it from the CDS, again, it is going to be the same UI.line item annotation in the local annotations as well, UI5 application local annotations. So keeping that in mind, so you can go ahead and look for SAPUI5. Here it is there in demo kit, but sometimes you might be ending up looking at a lot of documentation. But the keywords, how it has to be SAP UI5 UI dot line item XML annotation. Okay, so the first one itself is from demo kit. So in the demo kit, you straight away will be taken into this one. If you see, so this is what the example it is giving. And what is the XML annotation? It's going to be annotation.ui.line item. So if you like, you can copy the entire section of this one. Okay, but rather copying this one, I would suggest you go ahead and add manually here. Okay, but follow this one, okay, as a guidance. But once you are familiar with this, then you can copy this wherever it is required, rather going ahead and adding one by one manually. Then you can, once you get the confidence, you can straight away copy this one and paste it into your project. But we try to add at the initial stage. So here we have a plus add subnodes or plus icon here, and we have select targets button on the top. So first, what we do, we go ahead and click on the select target. So in the select targets, it automatically selected, because we bound that entity set onto the SmartFilter bar. It is already selected for us. Okay, so whereas travel header type already selected. So now I'm just going ahead to add my field onto this one. So here, if you see all these, some of them we are already familiar about it. Facets, data points, when we need to use the data point, whenever we use the progress indicator or a graph or something like that, then we will be using data point and field group, filter facets. We are already familiar about these few of them already. Identification. But in this search, you just search for line item here. So UI vocabulary dot line item here. So you just click on OK. Now we see the UI line item has been added here. Now there is a plus icon next to this UI line item again. So click on this plus, go here, and this time it's going to be the data field. Here there are lot of options here. If you see, we already know how to implement these ones in CDS. Data field for not annotation, data field for action. We have seen this. So whenever we want this for a BOPF action, we use data field for action. Data field for intent-based navigation. Whenever we want to navigate to semantic object and action-based app, then we will be using data field for intent-based navigation. So here our job is just give the semantic object and action. From freestyle application also we can implement this navigation from any of the field. Data field with action. So with action, whenever we say with action, it's going to be the static and table level action. So they're all available here. So whatever is suitable for us, we can straight away go ahead and pick up these annotations whenever we are working on this smart controls. So let me go ahead and choose this data field for now. And in the data field, it shows me the option to choose which what is the field you want to link to this line item. So I'm saying trip ID is going to be my first position. Okay. So now we have added this property, and at this data field level, if you want to add any additional things, if you see where the positioning of the cursor, the option where you click matters, showing the relevant options on this point of view. So if you click on this data field plus icon, it will show only the relevant options. So right now the travel ID, trip ID has some different value, and if you want to override that value at UI level, we have a feasibility for that one as well. So whereas this is going to be the internationalization capabilities again. So if you choose the label, it can go into the into the internationalization, and you can create the translatable text here as well. So that's fine. So we don't want to do that right now. And again, go ahead and add data field again. And in the data field line item, data field, this is going to be my 20 position in our CDS language. Let me define it. Where is this? From country. Yeah. And again, go ahead and add a data field one more time, and to country. Let's choose this as to country. So save this one, and once you add one data field here, any of them, so if you have many, now you can switch back to your code-based editor. So in the code-based editor, we can see how these how that is being included. So we can straight away copy this and repeat pasting the information here. Okay, so after this to country, we can look out the properties from our metadata. Otherwise, you can open the gateway project. You can straight away pick these properties from here, and you can replace them. If you feel uncomfortable going clicking on plus and adding again and again, you can straight away come here and do this. So state from, state to, Actually, in these type of situations, what I do, I use my Excel. I go ahead and I use concatenate statement. I place all these data into there, and I place these field names in one field, one column, and I click on the incremental order. It prepares automatically dynamically for me. Then I copy all of them and bring here and paste it in one go. So not created on, I want created at. Okay, that's fine. So I'm removing the rest of the fields. So we will leave some of the fields for user selection. So now we have defined the table level fields. So now let's go here and refresh the application. And surprising. Okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it is coming up. Well, it's my mistake. I closed early. So let me start the application again. Yep. So if you see, all the columns have been added for me using the local annotations. So I can click on go now. So I have my data coming through on the table. So whatever the sequence I have defined, they all as expected. They are same the sequence what I have defined in my local annotations. Okay, so now that's fine. Now we have an option to go ahead and choose the leftover fields here, and we know how we can add the labels using the local annotations, where we can spend some time and explore on the local annotations for this one. That's fine. So now we have our selection screen left blank, the selection parameters. So we know that it is again a UI annotation and UI dot selection field. Here also it's going to be the same. So let's switch to annotation modeler here, and again let me go to add this. So if you see here, selection fields, UI dot selection fields. Let me click on this selection fields. Find selection fields. Now click on the selection fields relevant plus icon here, and we don't want to use any of these ones first, but instead we'll be using the item available on the top. We are going to add the items of the selection fields. So let me click OK. So now we have an item being added. What is the property path? What field we want to be part of the selection screen? I'm just saying from country. And again, let me add another item onto this one. And let me choose my to country also. And also, again, let me add another item, and I'll include the trip status as well onto my selections list. And if you see, there are again plus icons available on this each item. If you click on this one, if you want to change the quick info is nothing but a tooltip. If you want to give any tooltip, you can give the tooltip, and if you want to give any heading, you can give it. But this is the hierarchy is for some of the hierarchies. Even I'm not sure how about it. And this label, again, if we want to overwrite with the label, UI level label, we can choose this one and we can give the labels. So now let me go ahead and refresh it. So in this case, if you see, we don't see the selection fields here. So I know the reason why they are not being displayed on the selection screen here. In terms of the gateway OData services, we need to explicitly specify the fields they are filterable. So in terms of CDS views entities, they are automatically exposed for filters. Whatever we don't want to be part of filters, then we need to hide them. UI consumption.filter.hidden. Okay, otherwise they are UI.filter.hidden, I think. Okay, otherwise all the number of fields will be part of the filters on the application. So in this case, as we are using the OData service, let me go to the OData service, go into the change mode. And if you see in this travel header properties, none of the properties are made or enabled for filters. So filterable property is not enabled for any of the properties here. So now whatever the property we are using, let me enable this filterable to country and what is this, trip status. And also I will enable for created by and trip approver trip ID. So I have enabled filterable for all these properties. Rest of the properties are made non-filterable. So let us try to see now.
Is it good practice to make all the fields as filterable?
No, some of the fields like quantity or amount fields or something like that. So they may not give the exact results if they are calculated or aggregated fields. Whatever involving the numbers like amount or quantity or decimal places and etc., it's not good practice to enable filter for them. So let me refresh this one. So if you see, we have enabled the filters on the OData service level. So the fields automatically brought onto the selection screen on the smart filter bar. And whatever the 3 fields that we have specified in our local annotations, only those 3 fields are displayed initially, but we still have more fields enabled for filter, including the trip ID, but they are not available on the initial screen. But if you go into the filters, those filters are available as non-selected filters here. So trip ID created by branching name, and so these descriptions you might need to change. But these 3 filter fields are not placed on the smart filter bar by default, but user have this facility to choose from the filters here. So once we deploy this application back to on-premise, and this is going to be, I think, in the latest versions, the filters is the option is adapt filters. When user click on adapt filters, all those rest of the fields will be displayed on that particular one. We have seen that when we worked on the UI5 Fiori elements applications. So now it is up to us to go ahead and look at all the helps and etc. So there will be no helps available at the moment. Any of the field or selection parameter available here. Even these input helps can be provided using the local annotations here. But if we want to provide the value helps using the local annotations, those helping entity sets must be available on our OData service. So if you see here, we have the country value help set available here. Let us go ahead and implement or use this entity set as a value help using our local annotations. So in this case, till now we have seen the target type as entity type, but as we are going to deal with a specific property, which is the country property here, from country property in this entity set particularly, we are thinking to provide value help for this property. We know it's not at entity type level, it is at a property level. So our target is going to be a bit different. So go to select targets again. And in this one, if you expand your travel header type, there is properties, and even further expand the properties, you will see all the properties available under this travel header type. In this one, you will see the from country available here. Just choose the from country, and from country property we have included here. So now you will see the plus icon available against to these local annotations. Go ahead and add your local annotations here. We know that it's going to be the value help. So in this case, the XML annotations is going to be the value list here. So in this value list, let me go ahead and add value list to this one. And once you add your value list, it comes along with the collection path and parameters. This collection path is nothing but our entity set that providing the value help here. So our entity set is the country value help here. Okay, country VH is our entity set. So I have provided the same entity set here. That is what the collection path. And in the parameters, again, we are going to add a couple of parameters here. So in this case, value list parameter in and out, and value list parameter display only. These two parameters we will be adding. Again, for these XML annotations, it's the same way how we searched for adding the UI.line item. So if you don't worry about this, as I'm going ahead with the known terminologies. So the same, once we know, okay, this is possible, then we can frame our searching criteria and we look for the documentation in the SAP help. So in this local data property, and this is kind of the binding what we have done in our CDSU value help definition. It's kind of additional binding. So in the additional binding, we have specified the local property name and what is the property name in the help providing CDS view. It's the same like here. The local data property is going to be our from country here. So to which property I'm going to assign the value which user selects from the value help. And value list property is going to be my property from country value help, and this is going to be my country is the value help property. Let me copy this one and paste it here. And the display only properties, and it goes along with the country and displays the country name here. So the display only property is going to be country name. I don't want my country name to be back onto the main page or the selection screen where once user selects. I want only country to be populated back onto the screen. That is what this configuration says. And let me save this one. So my changes are saved here. Let me go ahead and refresh my page. So this is the country region. I'm guessing this is what is the from country. And if you see now, I can see some nice help screen here. If you click on go, it's going to bring all my results that I have implemented on my entity set here, entity set in the backend. So I can select this one or multiple, whatever it is. Okay. And I can click on OK. It's going to populate only the country key back onto my selection screen. And sometimes we will be needing to have some filter criteria on this help itself. That is again specific to this particular entity set, whatever we are using here. So what is the entity set that we are using is this one. And in this one, we don't have filterable enabled on this country property here. So if we enable this filterable property on our country value help entity set, and once you generate it, and this field is going to be displayed as a search field on this particular one. And as this is purely a code-based OData service, our DPC class must be enabled with the filtering criteria, implemented with the filtering criteria. If you see here, country value help, in this country value help, I think we have not implemented any filter criteria. It must have the filter criteria implemented onto this one. So as we have enabled the filter filter on this country value help property, and the implementation also should be in sync with that particular one. So if I go ahead and refresh this again, okay, let it take some time. Yes, now it is working. Perfect. So if I go there now you see the field, country field has come up with the search option here. But this will not work for us now because filter criteria has not been implemented onto this field. So, but in action, if you want to say this, it's going to trigger the country set get entity set. Whenever once you click on type some key and click on go here, it's going to come up with that particular filter options, whatever. If you use the pattern, it's going to bring the same pattern values. So IT select field select options. So if you see here, country has come into this one and with the value equals to IN. So we need to implement this filter criteria in this particular implementation. Then only it starts working. So yeah, that's perfect. So for some reason, if you want to restrict user from selecting these multiple values, again we have seen this selection type option on our Fiori elements. Same thing here also, we have filter conditions. So let me go ahead and add the condition onto this one, which is the from country. Where is the selection field? Local annotations, selection field, and from country. And this is going to be Not sure if that is available on this version. Nope. Maybe on this one, property from country. Let me look on this one. So filter default value. If you want to assign a default value, we can assign the default value from here itself. Field control, nope. The property is not available here, but let me try to search on the global. No. Nope. Maybe this version is not having that value, it seems. Selection fields. And in the item we have seen, I think item we have seen it. And one final check here. Okay. No, it's not the selection type. Hidden filter. So if you want to hide a filter, even that is possible here. But here filter default value, if you see, we can assign a default value for this one. So default value in this case, we will be choosing a string here. And the string value, for example, if you want to say, we'll say GB. And GB is going to be our, come on, what is happening? Okay, so whenever we refresh, the from country is going to have the GB value by default. Okay, so now we have the SmartFilter bar created and integrated with the SmartTable. So this is how we will be using our local annotations. And similar way, if you want to create any of the facets, we can go ahead and create facets based on the entity types that we choose. Okay, so now, okay, are we thinking something? No, that's fine. So how these fields are important, we have seen that whenever we integrate with the UI, if you are applying some, let's say, filter on this particular one, even if you see this one, country, the filter, whatever we have enabled on these properties, they are automatically enable the filter on the columns as well. So if you see trip ID, yes, trip ID and created by filter, and where is this region? There is no filter. If you see, if you click on these columns, there is no filter available on this particular one. And again, there is trip status, I think. Trip status, again, there is a filter. This filter has been enabled on this one. But if we want to have more control on this SmartTable, and if we want to explore more on the SmartTable and also the SmartFilter bar, so we will be going into the API reference of this particular one. Okay, so if you're saying this is the SmartFilter bar, Okay, we have the demo kit and we are going into the samples, and in the samples we are picking up something. Okay, and in the samples, so whatever it is having, we are just going ahead and taking it, the code and etc. But what is the reference document for this control? What all I can do on this control? Okay, so that is not specified in this sample, right? So this is just an example what is implemented onto this control. But what are all the maximum capabilities that SAP is giving us? That is not here, but obviously that is there in this API reference. If you see, there is API reference here. So this API reference is a guide for us, whatever the maximum capabilities a control or any library or any model is having, we all, and including all the namespaces, XML namespaces of the controls. So everything we will see in this API reference. If you go into this API reference, if you see, all these are the namespaces SAP is having. We don't know all the namespaces that SAP is having. Okay, so these are all the namespaces SAP has delivered as part of API references, and these are all in use on the UI5 applications that SAP has delivered. Even we are allowed to pick up these namespaces and libraries and make use in our UI5 applications. So, for example, if I say sap.em, and it's going to display me, it's going to show me the sap.em namespace controls, whatever have been already in this or implemented under this sap.em namespace. So if you see, these are all the list of controls that are being segregated or listed down under sap.em namespace. These are all sap.em namespace controls. Okay, so let me how we can use it. So let me go ahead and pick up the smart filter bar in our case. So if you see, the smart filter bar is the namespace, in which namespace it is sap.ui.comp.smartFilterBar, and under this we have a smart filter bar here. So if you go into this smart filter bar, this is what we wanted. So whenever we click on go here, what is happening? If we want to some other requirement, if we want to implement something different when user clicks on go, whether we have an option to do that or not. So those confirmations we will get from our API reference page of the demo kit. So if you go here we have a lot of tabs available: constructor, properties, aggregations, associations, events, methods, annotations. So in this case, if you look at this constructor, whenever if we are using this smart filter in our JavaScript code, if we want to create an instance to this one, how we create it? This is how we create an instance. Okay, but it is very rare case. We won't be creating it, but mostly what we will be working on, we'll be looking at these properties is the first thing, and events, methods, these three, and also annotations. These These are the main things we will be looking at it. So let me look at these properties first. And in the properties, you will see entity type. So we know that this is deprecated, and here it says clearly that this is deprecated. Since 140, this has been deprecated and replaced with entity set. Entity set property, that is what even we got a message from WebIDE as well. So entity set property, and here we have even the type as well. So what kind of type, and a detailed description here. So what we need to use to pass value onto this entity set. So whenever we say these properties, how we are going to use them is, if you see here, this is where we are using the properties, entity set. So once we open the XML command, the control command, then we start putting our properties, list of properties within this one. Okay. So now let me go into this one again. Let me make it separate. And now in this one, if you see, we have entity set. We already have the entity set populated onto this one. And what is that one? Yeah. Entity set is done. And resource URI, it is deprecated. That's fine. Basic search field name of the field, that is focus of the basic search. So we have specified the search functionality within our CDSU, whereas if we use our CDSU to bring the search results, whenever we mention search annotation dot searchable true, automatically a search field will be created on this section. But as we are dealing with our code based, we have an option to project the search. Obviously it doesn't do anything. Please remember that it doesn't mean once we add that option it's going to search automatically, because we shouldn't forget that we are not working on the CDS. We are working on the code based OData service, so it's not going to do anything for us. And enable basic search, so by default it's false, and we can go through from this one. And live mode, for example, this live mode is false. And there is a description if we want to read through, but this live mode, what it does. So right now I'm going to implement this one. So if you remove this GB, it's not going to happen anything, but the screen is grayed out. That's it. And there is a go button available here. But in your scenario, if you want to see the results straight away once you make any changes here, then this live mode will come into picture. So if I say live mode equal to true, if I make it true, live mode true, by default it'll give us, or it will tell us what is the default value here. Live mode is by default is disabled. If we want to enable it, then just enable change this value to false. How we change it? This is how we change it. We just go into the properties and we add that live mode property, we change the value to true, and that's where it takes a reflection onto our application. If you see, there is no go button right now. So whenever you remove this one, it straight away goes and triggers the call, and it brings the data for us. Okay, so like that we have all these properties. So these properties, they are going to be just enabling, disabling, or plug and play kind of stuff. These once we set these properties, the automatically it start working on the respective settings that we populate onto it. So similarly, we have selection variants, default selection variants. So if you have any selection variants here, so as we have given the personalization here, so the personalization or variant saving, again, it is an option. So we can look, consider not this one, show messages, not this one, and if you don't find any of the properties on this particular list, and first thing what we can look at is what is the source of this particular control. So it is being built based on the filter bar. Smart filter bar is built based on the filter bar. So if you come across any of such property you saw in any blog or something, then you don't need to worry about that. Okay, I don't see that property in my smart filter bar, how come I can use it? But there is a section in the bottom, borrowed from filter bar here. So if you see, there are some events. Right now we are on event section. There are some events which are borrowed from filter bar, and they are also being used. And as this is an extension, the extension to that one, the filter bar is going to be the super class. We are allowed to use its properties as well. So, and let me go into this filter bar. I just clicked on this filter bar. Let it open. And whatever the super class, super element or super control we see on any of the particular control, we are free to go into that super control, and we can make use of its the super element properties as well. So if you see here, there are more properties available in this one. So in this one, let me use a snapshot, not that one. So advanced mode. So these are all having their own functionalities built into this one. And let's say this one, for example, filter bar expanded. So this filter bar expanded. So by default, the value is true for that one. And even if you see our filter bar, whenever we refresh our application, this filter bar is expanded. That means it shows all our controls to us. But if we want to make that not expanded by default, we can use the false. So whenever you reload the application, now we will not see these filter options by default. So we need to go and click on this show filter bar, and we need to adjust the filters. Okay, so like this, we have the filters for each and every control. That is where our API reference will come into picture. That's fine. So now I'm going back to this one, and also the events. The next one we are going to look at is events. So let's look at the events summary. And in this events, we have the pending change. So pending change event, and also some of the events borrowed from the filter bar as well. So this search here, this search function is triggered whenever a user clicks on search button here. As we do not have search button here, it is automatically triggering the search. But even though we have control to get into the search, once we include a method onto that one. So for example, I'm adding search. As this is an event, don't forget that these events and the methods, we are going to use these two in the JavaScripts, not in the XML file, but we configure the function names in the XML, but we will be writing or any relevant logic in the respective JavaScript or controller file. So let me write a function here on trip search, for example, on smart search go. So for this one, we do not have any function written yet. Let me go ahead and refresh my page. So once I refresh this one, it will be reporting some messages that there is no function exist with the name go trip, something like that. 404 not found. That's fine. So it is not logging the message. Maybe somewhere I'm missing. That's fine. So if you look at this one, sorry, show filter bar and remove it. Now we see this data. And in this case, how we implement our method here. So let me go into the controller here. You need to look at which view we are in, home.view.xml. Let's go to the home.controller.js, and here we will be implementing that particular method here. Okay, so we will be writing a method like this. I'll tell you why this event is required and etc. So for now, we just write this method like this. So we have configuration in our view, but the implementation or actual action is going to be performed or implemented in the controller file, the respective controller file here. So if we want to know about this method, just go ahead and click on this search event. It is going to teach us or guide us what exactly the inputs for this search function, and what will framework provide, and what we can proceed, what we can get out of it. That is what it's going to tell us. So if you see the search function, it has its own signature built into it. It gives us the control event and get source. So once we call, these are the methods available in that particular event. Once we call this get source, it's going to give us the respective control event provider. That means the smart filter bar. Okay, and here we will have the parameters selection set. It's going to be providing us the number of fields, the fields that it has. So let us go ahead and put a debugging point here. So now let's go ahead and let me launch the developer tools. This is how we will be launching the debugging. And let me clear my console. Let me go to sources tab. In the sources, we will see the where is that one? Let me reload this one. So in the controllers, if you see, we see the home controller here. We have a debugging point also inserted onto that one. So let me remove that one. And if you see, once a search has triggered, our debugger came into this event. That event has been triggered here. So whatever the things that we have seen on our guide, let me clear this console again. Let's come to console, and this is the O event. And in the event, whatever we have seen there, so in here, if you see get source is the function which is available to get this source actually. So when we call the get source method, this source will be returned. If you see in this source, here the ID is important for us. So SID, it is returning the smart filter bar for us. Okay. And from this one, we will be able to get the selection set here. Whatever has been selected, the selection set, we have 3 fields. They are from country, to country, and trip status, etc. So that's fine. So we do not want to go into more deep on the day one. So we will be understanding more, but the intention or the thing that we need to carry out from here is we have samples for looking at the SAP provided samples, and for the namespaces, what level of maximum capabilities any control has. To know that, we have this API reference. If you come to API reference, what all you can do will be determined. And if you go to samples, you will be knowing how you can use it for your purpose. A sample example. And here we have a documentation again. Here we will be having the developer guide for UI5 applications, how we develop our applications. So we will go to that later. And at the last, we have demo apps. If you want to look at any of the demo apps, so you can straight away go ahead and connect to Git repository. You can download this demo apps, connect them to your web IDE, and you can navigate through those applications, how they have been built, to understand more detail. So they have worklist applications, master detail, template, etc. So they can be downloaded and imported straight away onto our web IDE, and we can look at the approach how SAP or these applications have been developed. And on the last, this is again another useful tab that we have, tools. In the tools, we have the web IDE UI5 inspector. This is an extension to the Chrome browser or Edge browser as well. So if you want to use your developer tools effectively, then this UI inspector will help us to look at the more information. And this icon explorer, I'll come to that, and the theme designer, if you have any requirement to build a theme in your organization, and this will guide us how to build the theme and what font should we choose, and font color and etc. They are all those options or guidance will be available on this theme designer. This icon explorer is another important one. If you look at this one, earlier we used to have these icons in SAP in our I think graphics as a MIME objects, but in UI5 world they brought this icon explorer as a global thing. So all these icons can be straight away utilized in our applications. So if you click on any of this particular icon, you will be having what is the source of this icon here, and we will be using the buttons along with this a few of the icons. Then we can see how they look like. And also here we have a preview. If we use this particular icon, how it is going to look like. If it is on to toolbar, how it is going to look like, if you see. Okay, and you can go and check once user clicks how it responds and etc. And also if you use this as a filter, icon filter or things like that, how it is going to look like, we can experience this from here itself. And if you place this on a tile, how it is going to look like. And if you use this on as a profile pic or avatar on your object page, header page, which is a badge, how it is going to look like. We have a very specific detailed information available on this particular one. And similarly, whatever the icon you choose, it will be having the all places how it is going to look like in terms of its states again. So this is a warning, error, and this is a success. All the states how it is going to look like, we can experience that. And on the tile, so we have already used this icon when we register our tile onto the launchpad. But there we just gone to browse and choose one of the tile available from there. But there is no specific option to search for the tile, search for the icons. This is the place where whether there is a icon available with that particular search term or etc. So machine, for example, if I type for machine, whatever the matching results will be displayed here. And also the predefined categories are also listed down here. If we want to go ahead and look out any of the specific categories, we can select those categories, and we can look for those icons, and we can use these icons in our applications. Okay, so similarly for the theme designer, I'm coming here onto the theme designer as well. I think something wrong with this theme designer. I will leave it for you to check that one. And these are also same theme parameter, toolbox, app, and etc. So we can create the parameters. We can download this one, and we can upload into our theme designer. From there we can take it forward. Okay, so a lot of tools, and this documentation itself will help us developing the effective UI5 applications. So for tomorrow, I think we will be following again the same, but we will be writing few of the JavaScript functionalities, and we will be developing some forms, we will add the buttons onto this toolbar. We will be looking at the routing concept, how we navigate between the pages and etc. We'll see that. So yeah, that's it for today. Thank you.